Yo, what's going on, everyone? Welcome, Coffee Creators. It's 11 o'clock Eastern here in New York. It's a Wednesday, so we go live with some people you should know about, like this human next to me, Nancy Borowick, who we're going to get to in a minute. Once I unleash this, trust me, guys. It's one of those situations, but this is 42 West 18th Street. You are always welcome here. These chairs are for you just as much as this chat is here for you. But before we get going, you know what I got to do? I got to say what's up to the people who help support this space, like Adobe. So Adobe sponsoring this one. You guys know Adobe. If you've been a photographer, videographer, any type of creator, if you've had a computer since like 1990 or whatever, you've had something Adobe that's helped you create something to put out there in this world forever. Adobe Premiere, Photoshop, which is, come on, Photoshop. It's literally a verb. You Photoshopped that. That's a verb, okay? You've got Lightroom. It's true, right? So all the stuff happening. They're at the forefront of a lot of technology. Make sure you check out the link down below for what's going on with Adobe currently. And I also want to say a big thank you to Tenba for sponsoring as well. You're going to get a free bag. Look at this. Ah, nice. Awesome. It's a custom plate for Coffee Creators, just for the guests here. Tenba is a legacy company in this industry. Don't forget, they were started by a photographer in 1977 right here in New York. And again, it's one of those brands I think if you've been shooting long enough, you probably had a Tenba somewhere in your arsenal at some point. So thank you so much, Tenba. What are you going to hold it like a baby? And lastly, I just want to say a quick thank you to Gotham Roasters, who is over one block on 19th Street. Thank you so much. Cheers, kid.
Cheers.
What'd you get?
Almond milk mocha. Feeling wild this morning.
It's got an interesting hue to it. I'll say that.
It's a nice ombre.
Ombre. Wow. Okay. The first time I heard ombre was when I started shooting makeup and I saw like the lips doing ombre. I'm like, what do you mean ombre? I don't know what you're talking about. And then I realized what it meant, gradation, all that kind of stuff. But I want to say a quick thanks to him. So if you're coming here for an event, like, I don't know, what's an event? Oh, I don't know, Thursday, 5 o'clock. Daniel will be in here shooting best lenses for portraits. Go grab a coffee. Come grab a chair. Be, what's that word? Communal. And if you can't make it, you guys know that this chat is always here for you. Okay, guys? Let's get into who this human is. Nancy Borowick is, honestly, here in New York, if you run into anybody that shoots some sort of press media or has gone to ICP, they'll tell you that they're best friends with Nancy Borowick. She has had her work exhibited in over 100 cities. I think you've been a New York Times photographer since, I think, like 2013. It's got to be over a decade, easily, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
What is time?
What is time? But really, what I always gather is I come across her work because it's so impactful, and she really is. Photographers are very quick to tell you they're storytellers, not story capturers. And I think that's really what you do. You work yourself into a human aspect and you really pull out the elements for the other people who aren't there to really understand. I'm going to show some of your work while we do this. Okay. Hey. But wow, if you guys haven't heard of Nancy Borowick, you're going to do today. So you have a book on this table right here, The Family Imprint, which is about the passing of your parents, I believe.
Yes.
And it's not just photos. I mean, there's like elements and media to this. There's like opening the cards and handwritten this. And so you're really understanding it. Oh, whoops. Sorry, guys. Always something goes wrong. Always. It's okay. I got you. You're understanding that it's more than just an image that's a media, that there's an extra element to this that people might need in order to, sorry, guys. There we go. Sorry. Wow. It's live, man. It's
Your
live.
capacity to talk and deal with technology is amazing.
And with a sprained ankle. No, look, I think that's part of what all of us do. If you shoot anything that is hectic, if you're not ready at all times, which you absolutely have to be, especially you've worked freelance for newspapers all over the place. Newsday we were just talking about, which is Long Island. You're jumping on a train east and west trying to catch stories for a few $100. I mean, it just goes on and on. It doesn't get more legit, more real deal than someone that's not getting rich off of this, hustling their brains out, and really still loves it.
Yeah. Wow. In a nutshell, yes. All of those things. I don't know. I've always been a storyteller. I've always been extremely curious and nosy. Yeah. I joke often that I have it on a good authority that I was a bit of a tattletale as a child. And I love that because it's just I've always just needed to connect with people, and photography became such a easy way for me to do that since I was a little kid. Ever since I got to take pictures. So, and then, yeah, I don't know, you just talked about so many different things. I have so many thoughts in my head right
there's
now.
so many. You had such a career so far. Look, when we put these together, you guys see the description in there, and every now and then it'll be like 3 sentences. Awards this, did this one thing, and yours is like a brick of like. And then just to show you what type of person, it's like the dog is just as important as like the people. Like you list your pets. You can tell a lot of people by their bio, I think, and how it was written. I had someone write my bio for me because I had no idea. Yeah. It's like, you just tell me what I am and I'll just use that at the trade shows. But yours is, I mean, the 100 cities that your work has been exhibited in, if you think about that, how many people have actually lived in a space next to your work and had it wash over them in a physical space? That's not just someone flipping past Instagram.
Yeah, it's surreal. I mean, it's amazing what the internet has done to be able to, share your work with like a super wide audience. And when I was working on this project about my family, this book is the culmination of the project, and it's not just about this final chapter of my parents' life when they were kind of in this parallel treatment for stage 4 cancers at the same time. It's actually more of a dive into how were we the way that we were to go through this experience together? So the book, it's not just the final chapter of them living and sort of and dying. It's about
the relationship you have.
Their relationship. And it really came from a place of people saying, well, how are you so positive? How can you talk about this in such a sort of joyful way? And I tell people, well, there was a lot of joy at the end of their lives, but I also wanted to learn more about myself and our family. And when my siblings and my brother is here right now. Hey. Matt Borowick. But we started to go through all these things that we found in our house. And I felt like I was learning more about our parents as people and not just our parents. And I felt like the best way to speak about our experience was to give people a much more well-rounded picture and kind of experience what we were experiencing, getting to know my parents as these individuals and not just mom and dad. And so this book is my heart. And when I get to give it to people like you today, I know that you appreciate stories and life and the nuances of the work that we do and why we do it. And so,
well, I'll tell you what's crazy is like, there's so many times someone will hand you a book in this industry and it's basically an ego sandwich, right? And this is, you went out of your way above and beyond to include Hallmark cards and stuff that you're really trying to get across a project and a tone and a feel and an impact. And it's, even if I don't know your parents, I should feel like I'm sad they're gone. And that's unbelievable that you're able to do that. No one's talking here. This is a quiet, inanimate object. That's what's so crazy about it. And you do an amazing job at it, but also the curation of it. It shows how much you really thought it out. And a lot of times stuff like this, a long time ago, I worked for someone that did they covered AIDS patients in a really troubled time where they were doing experimental research.
Yeah.
And the work was incredible, but by the time it was over, it was so inundating and so depressing and so rough that I was like, I don't know how this really impacted me, but something like this, I think you're making a negotiation about it. I think you're making your peace with it. I think you're helping the viewer who has no idea what's going on, their peace with it. And that's a news photographer right there.
Yeah. You know what? Sometimes when I used to talk about this project, people would say, like, how could you have worked on this? Because I can imagine learning this news about your parents and like, how did you have the headspace to be able to do that? And I was like, I actually have no idea. I honestly think it's because it was about 3 years freelancing for Newsday, learning I was honing my skills. I was learning how to kind of work in different types of situations as they arose. And I think it sort of prepared me for when this happened to just sort of, I feel like mentally, emotionally, professionally, like all of the skills, it was building towards that. And I didn't know what I was doing in the time. And I was just going through the motions, and it was deeply therapeutic for me to just be with my parents. And I think the camera gave me some distance from what was really happening. And then the book has had a life of its own in a really beautiful way, because I had planned to just make a book for myself. I wanted to remember all the things, like not just I wanted to remember their strength, but also their the depth of emotion that we felt during this time, because I wanted to remember the whole thing. I wanted to feel the whole thing. And this book came out in 2017. My dad died in 2013. My mom died in 2014. It's been over a decade since they've been gone. And I feel like I remember them so vividly. And when people look at the book and dig into it and tell me they feel like they know my parents, and they've learned the lessons that my parents shared with us through this book, like that brings me like this deep, it's kind of like the soul food, right? Like it's like why we do why I feel so deeply lucky that I get to do what I do professionally, because I feel like I can connect with people on multiple levels, and that selfishly like just brings me this joy, knowing that it's doing something beyond just a photography project.
Do you feel that this was kind of like a pre-processing of grief?
Oh,
like you got ahead of it, kind of?
Yeah, I mean, the whole project was. I think my mom had breast cancer on and off for about 18 years. She had her third diagnosis with the disease when my father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I think in that moment, I think that's when I started grieving, because we all understood the reality of their diseases, and my mom kept surviving and living. Modern medicine is a big reason for that. But, she lived almost 20 years with breast cancer. My dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And the second you Google that, you learn the mistake of Googling that, because you realize just what that kind of means. I think that's really when everything came to a head. And I knew I had just started freelancing for the New York Times. And the editor I was working with, Maura Foley, I remember she was like, I think I had been talking to her about how my dad had just been diagnosed, and I just apologized for not being as available as I could have been. And she was like, oh my gosh, like, be with your family.
Yeah.
Like, this is bigger than photography. Be with your family. And that was such a gift in an industry that can sometimes not be so forgiving. And in an industry where people don't often share their personal stories. You don't really know what's going on, behind the lens.
Yeah, it also gives you like something to focus on parallel. So you're in it, but you're also just like right next to it in a way. Oh,
shooting it. I don't understand. I think photographers, we are a very unique breed of human.
Nah, we're not. None of you guys are unique or anything.
I think we like, I don't know.
We're species.
Sometimes 100%. I think that like I've compartmentalized in some way, but being there and shooting, I wasn't thinking about, here are my parents in these chemo chairs together side by side, having, poison pumped through their bodies. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, the symmetry. It's like one of the first pictures in my project. The symmetry and the light, like I noticed it, and no, it's that first chapter. It's like, how do you put a whole project on your website, like, and be concise? It was impossible. Where is this picture? Oh, maybe I don't lead with cancer. There it is in the chemo room. Like, this situation was so unusual and devastating, but also there was something so telling about their experiences. And working as a professional photographer, especially for the news, I've learned that often you only get one image to tell a story. You try to get as much as you can in that image. And looking back on this project now, that image to me, when I decided there was going to be an image, if I could only give one image, like if someone only wanted to run one image, what image would that be? And often I would choose this one, because to me, this spoke to all the universal themes, cancer, illness, parenthood, caregiving, love, the nuances of caring for someone when you're sick, and then of course I remember when I shot this, this was actually probably the third time I took this exact picture.
Okay.
Because when you're on assignment, you often don't get to revisit your situation. And when you're in chemo, you're there a lot. So when I originally took this picture, I was using a 24-70, and I couldn't back up far enough. I was against the wall, like, when you get into those weird positions because you're like, I just got to get a little bit further.
I just crush my skull in a little bit. I'll get that corner and that edge of that frame.
Yes. Yeah. And I was like, it was warping a little, and I was like, this isn't what I want. And then I came back the next week with a 20 that I rented. I think I actually rented it from here.
Oh, nice.
But it just really, I've lost my train of thought, but
Just being able to revisit it was probably like a gift.
Oh, again and again. The fact that I get to talk about this project and get to talk about my parents, a decade later with people who don't know the story or people who do, who have been following the journey that this project took. First it was published in the New York Times, then it was worldwide, and people from around the world reached out to me, reached out to my siblings. It connected us in a way that, in a time when you can feel really alone dealing with your own grief and your own loss, we felt very not alone.
Oh, are you kidding me? Like, what's more universal than people having to dread the day they say goodbye to their parents in one way or another? Or name a person in the modern era that hasn't had someone affected by cancer or deals with grief, no matter what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's as universal as it gets. And when you have images, unless you're blind, it is the most universal language on the planet, right?
Yeah, and I think that's why this story of a family going through this kind of had the life that it did in such a big way, because people have told me, like, there have been people who have said, like, I haven't experienced cancer, or I haven't experienced loss, but I am a daughter, I am a mother, right. And there's components of this that really connect for me, and that is like, that just is bigger than photography. So
outside of this project, I feel like is super important, but I feel like what you probably learned from this is just connectability. I mean, you probably go into news situations, and when I say news situations, like, go cover this, and you're finding it from more of a, let me get in the fabric of it, more of a standpoint, rather than, I don't want to get too deep into it. You probably push yourself in there. You probably make friends with people. You get to know that security guard to get past that thing. I mean, that's what real news shooters do, right?
Yeah.
So, but do you feel like that's like probably your superpower aside from the technical?
Well, I think vulnerability begets vulnerability, right?
Okay.
That's the word, begets. And I have always been someone who I love sharing, whether people want to hear it or not. Like, you make eye contact with me on the street, I'm like, do you want to know my personal story? It's a real problem. I'm an oversharer.
You're very non-threatening, I'll say that. You know what I mean?
And that works really well, especially when I remember at some point I was supposed to photograph for AM New York.
Oh, wow, AM New York.
Yeah.
Wow. If you rode a subway in New York in early 2000s to like 2015, maybe, someone handed you a free newspaper.
Oh, and it was amazing because you did. Yeah, and you would read it, and by the time you got to your stop, you were done. I remember, actually, I was very proud. One time, one of my first stories, I saw it like had been used, I think, to clean something up on the sidewalk, and I was like, "That's me. That's my picture." But I once had to photograph. It was when there were big sugary drinks in New York, and they were maybe going to change legislation or something.
Bloomberg was all like, "You're not allowed to drink sugar anymore."
Like the 32 ounce or whatever, it was bigger.
So dumb.
So I needed to photograph someone with one of these drinks, and they were like, "You can set it up; it doesn't matter." And so I had this drink, and I was like, "How can I show the perspective of this large drink?" And I was like, "Oh, maybe kid hands." And so I went to a playground and just started talking to parents and I didn't get any notes. People were just like, "What is this?" I can approach, like, I feel very comfortable approaching strangers. So if they're not even if they're not an entire stranger, like, I just think it's always a no unless you ask.
Yeah.
My friend, Kristen Lewis shared that with me. And it's so true, because you get in your own way, and it's way easier to just to not take that chance. But what I end up doing, I find myself, I used to do this all the time on assignment. If I was feeling nervous or anxious, I literally would shake it off. I would be in the street, just shaking off my nerves. And then I would just do it.
Well, that's you have to realize, first of all, what type of person you are and where your strength is going to be as far as connecting and getting ahead, right?
Yeah.
So like me going to a playground, probably not the best idea, right? But there's been situations I had to cover stuff, and that security guard looks like some dude I went to a hardcore show with. I can find a common ground. I'll get through.
Yeah.
I'll figure something out, But I feel like that comes, first of all, you have to be confident enough and calm enough to go do that. If someone told me I needed to get a giant sugary drink and I needed to make a size reference, the first thing I do is put a dollar bill next to it. I'm like, everyone knows what a dollar bill is.
Oh, that's true.
And I don't got to go, showing that I'm not a registered sex offender. That'd be kind of good. Be kind of a good thing to do. But you really went to the human aspect. This is what your children could be drinking. Here's some tiny little hands.
That's what and
did you give the kid a sip at least?
I don't think so. I think
evil, just pure evil. That's it. It's over. She's just taking ice cream cones from kids and stuff.
I would never.
Oh,
as a mom of 2 young children, how dare you? No, no. I think it is a strength, and a lot of people struggle with this. That vulnerability component of it, and I guess I would say when people have asked, like, how do you make that connection? I often will think, okay, people respond to vulnerability. So I once photographed this guy who had just gotten out of prison after 20 years. And we met up in an office space and I was supposed to make his portrait. And I was like, okay, I'll just make do with what I have. This space is terrible, but like, this is where we were told to meet. And I walk into the room and he is so clearly uncomfortable.
Yeah, you think?
And I realized, I took a few pictures, realized it was garbage, put my camera down and was like, okay, like, are you okay? You seem nervous. And he said, yeah, I am nervous. And I was like, I make you nervous? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. So I put my camera down and I was like, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. Just started vomiting information. I think I mentioned I was 29 at the time, not so much anymore. And he was like, he kind of perked up and I was like, what? And he's like, I have 2 daughters who are 29.
Wow.
And they're the loves of my life. And I was like, see? Like, we've got that. And I'm, and that kind of, everything changed at that moment. And so offering the vulnerability, finding the connection. There's always a connection. We're humans.
Yeah. So it's funny because we just did a wedding workshop. So I'm watching all these people that are like still learning to go shoot. And you watch that they forget the human aspect. You can always learn the technical. You can always figure out your gear. You can always understand a setting. But like, if you don't understand that you're literally working with a human and a person, and you don't know that there's like another step you've got to take to just not be a weirdo that's sucking their soul out into immortality or whatever. I mean, we got people in here like Marcus is saying he's the weirdest person. Photographers are weird in the best ways, minus me. You were on this show, so don't start that. The thing about photographers is like there's such a weird mix of skills that are variable in environments. You don't know what's going to happen next. Even if you're in a controlled studio, you have no idea. Case in point, I've had 2 people vomit in my studio from the zombie blood stuff. You prepare yourself for that. Okay. So you don't know, right? But that happens. I understand. You don't freak out. You don't make them feel bad about it.
No.
You have to understand that the camera is just in your hand. It's not the end all.
Yeah. And you have to be resourceful. Like you have to come to the table with all the things. Like, and you have to make decisions. Like, is this the right? Like, should I put my camera down in this moment? Like, there was
a participant or a viewer.
Yeah, and like just sort of, I don't know. Like, just
do you help or do you document it?
But and often it takes 2 to tango. Like, I feel like sometimes photographers can take, but they don't necessarily give, and eventually that shuts down. We can be very selfish people, but also I think that's what drives us and what helps us become the best at what we do. Yeah. But also being aware of it and even being good. I'm not a terrible listener. I'm a gap filler. Silence is my enemy.
Yeah. No, it works good for live format. But I think something as simple, I tell every newer photographer, like, no matter what, try to learn someone's name. Like, just getting someone on name basis will lower guards to a level you couldn't even imagine.
Oh, yeah.
And you have no idea when you're going to see them again, you're going to know that photograph. Like, 60 million people apparently know you. I'm going to have Nancy on. Oh, tell her I said hi. You know how many times I heard that this week? Aww. Tell Nancy I said hi. And it was detrimental if I didn't tell them. If I didn't tell you they said hi, it's crazy. That being said, guys, we're live. You guys have any questions, please feel free. Michael Carbajal, welcome. You're always in this chat. Marcus, everybody. This is why we go live for this stuff. And if you're watching this on playback, drop something in the comments. We were just talking about this, that we're like bending ourselves for the YouTube overlord of it. You know what I mean? But this is the era that we're in. So having done this for so long in a media that I feel like has been so hardcore, like press media the demeanor of it hasn't changed. The speed of it has changed. The expectations have changed, but like the demeanor, I feel like hasn't changed.
Yeah.
How do you feel it's gone from when you started to like where we are in 2025? Do you feel like what's been the biggest change aside from technology? Has there just been something that you weren't prepared for, you didn't think would be?
I mean, the technology is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Because I remember early on, it was like, okay, send us a wide edit of your stills, and then it became
With a date, by the way. It wasn't end of day or as soon as possible. It was like a date.
And then it was like, oh, could you also shoot some B-roll video?
Yeah.
Oh, could you also wirelessly transmit those images from 6th Avenue? Oh, can you make sure they're also like full of metadata and have all this like information in there, and like send it while it's happening.
Yeah.
Like things got really fast, and that was, I think, before the quality of the smartphones cameras took hold, and suddenly there was just like a ton of imagery coming out. I don't shoot like news anymore.
Okay.
And that's fine. I loved the thrill of it. I loved being in the mix, and I loved being in the know. When I lived in New York City, I would simultaneously watch New York 1 and listen to 1010 Wins.
And you stayed sane. That's amazing.
I don't know if I stayed sane. I definitely,
man, 1010.
well, because I used to drive out to Long Island all the time, and I was like, 22 minutes, give me the world. Like I needed to know my traffic. It became obsessive.
They got that fake typing sound going on. It always drove me nuts. I'm like, would you just
see, and for me, it was like very Pavlovian. Like
really?
I'd be like, okay, let's go. Like
your heart starts beating. You're like, what's this guy saying? He's like, someone threw a donut at somebody. You're like, oh my God. You know, it just made you feel like on edge the whole time. And you knew it was fake. No one's sitting there in typewriters. He's not in a typing room.
But I think it just got me in this headspace. It like helped pump me up when I was headed to an assignment. And I feel like it's just not the same anymore.
Workout track. That was like, oh my God.
Yeah. No, it's just things feel different.
So what have you transitioned to if you're not doing news?
So I think after working on this project, I realized that, I was still figuring out who I was as a photographer. Like my first jobs outside of after I graduated ICP were a mix of things. Some of it was working for Newsday. Some of it was shooting baby showers. Like I saw it all as tools in my tool belt. And if someone wanted to pay me to make photographs, like I was beyond happy to be doing anything. But then after I worked on this book, I was sort of like, okay, what is next for me? And what kind of came soon after this was I had my first son, Levi, and then the pandemic hit 4 months later.
Wow. Okay.
That's really actually where my transition away from news came, because I would get called on assignments that were mostly related to the pandemic, but I had a newborn, and I really didn't. I understood that was too much of a risk to put my family at. So I started, a lot of people encouraged me to like look in, but they're like, well, you've already told this one chapter from your family story. Why don't you start telling another? And so I started photographing motherhood and my boys, or my boy and then my boys.
Okay.
And actually the project I realized that I liked long form storytelling. That was just, I wanted, news often didn't give you space for that. News was fast and daily and
you're over and on to the next.
Over and on to the next. For me, I just wanted to linger in it longer. And it's just who I was. I feel like I often have to tell my students, but also remind myself to trust in the process, and trust in the universe. And so after my son was born, I was actually really depressed. I had really bad postpartum depression. And it was deep in the pandemic. And I decided that if I wanted to survive, I needed to survive for him. I needed to figure out something to do creatively, because it helped me once before. Maybe it would help me again. So I did as one does, and I posted to Facebook.
Oh, wow. That's a healtty place. That's the environment. That's it. That's where you want to be, guys.
Does anyone have a story of birth trauma that they want to share with me?
Oh, jeez.
I'm a joy at parties, let me tell you.
Facebook.
And people wrote back, and that started a whole new longer term project around birth trauma, specifically around stillbirth. And the story truly, I mean, stillbirth is what brought me to this moment of the story, but the project was more about the mothers and their loss, but their survival. And their resilience. And it's called The Lost Mother's Stone. It's at the top. So, I thought this might be an opportunity. Having heard their story, started to hear their stories, I realized, I shoot reportage, I shoot action, I shoot the situation as it's unfolding. In this situation, these women had their losses before I met them. So how do I tell a story about something that happened in the past? So I decided to approach this because with personal projects or with your own projects that are not on, a commission or working for a publication, the world is your oyster. You also have no accountability, which means it can go on for 100 years because no one's really holding you.
Yeah, there's no throttle.
You're just kind of like let loose. But that's what mentors and friends are for.
You don't work with any photo editors that you've worked with over the years to maybe look at your work?
Yes, I do. Well, Jim Estrin from the New York Times has been a champion of mine and many young photographers forever. And I went to him pretty early on in this. And I said, I'm trying to figure out how to approach this. And he's like, well, what about like portraits? And I was like, yeah, no, I've been thinking about portraits, but maybe diptychs because I want to honor the mother. Moms are never in the photo. I want to honor the mother, and I want to pair it with something that symbolizes either the child that they lost or what they had hoped for that child, or, with stillbirth where these children are born, they're gone before they're even born. The world doesn't know them, but these mothers do. So they live in this grief. And I think the grief and the loss and the survival, while my parents died in the natural order of things, and bearing your child is not the natural order of things, I felt like I connected to these women in a certain way because of our shared experiences. And then becoming a mother, I just felt with the things that I was learning from these women about, things that had happened, things they wish they had known, I felt empowered. And when I was pregnant with my second son, I was deep in this project, feeling like I had all the tools at my disposal as a pregnant person and wanted to go on and continue sharing this. I want to also mention, I don't breathe, by the way, when I talk, I just keep going. I challenged myself to do portraits, which is hard for me because often, unless you want a portrait of someone mid-conversation, you have to kind of navigate the situation, right? And so what I decided was, okay, my process here was going to be very intentional. I was going to make a portrait of each of these women out in nature because I liked the play on Mother Nature, and we would spend the first 2 hours actually inside doing a video conversation, just talking about their experiences, lessons learned, things that they, just memories that they had, just really getting to know them, and then taking that and letting that conversation inform the portrait. And then once we take the portrait, a portrait photographer, Oded Wagenstein, gave me this great advice. And he said, okay, get in the situation you want and then say to them, okay, I'd like to spend the next 2 minutes not talking, just sort of being in this moment together, thinking about what we've just discussed. And so I tried it. And for 2 minutes, neither one of us spoke in my first portrait. And I made, and I'm on silent shutter, and I made a bunch of pictures. And from that point, it was really eye-opening for me because it was a change in the way that I practiced, but also something now when I'm working, I try to implement.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of power in silence. There's a lot of,
Well, you acclimate. You acclimate to just where you are instead of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then so the most famous version of that ever was Avedon with Marilyn Monroe. She drops her guard. He shot that photo.
Yeah.
And that's the only photo I ever remember of that woman who's probably photographed more than anyone in the world. But that's a portrait photography. You're portraying someone. We always talk about that, right, guys? Like portray. It's not, let me just make sure the light's here. Stay with me. Turn your head a little like this. Like what that stuff in what we just showed does not fit. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
And plus they're probably trying to remember what they went through, who their child could have been, wondering what would have been, and all that kind of stuff. And that's what you're really pulling from that image.
Totally. And on top of that, like me and Matt, like this isn't photographer subject. This is now friend and friend. And I feel so honored that they have shared such a difficult time in their lives with me. And I will tell you, each one of these women, after we did the shoot, would say to me two things. One, thank you for caring and asking about this child that people are scared to ask about. And two, if my story doesn't make the cut in the end, like, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm grateful just to have been a part of the process. And that to me, like, speaks just volumes about the power of allowing people to share their stories and being there to listen.
Was this on exhibition anywhere?
Yes, recently.
Okay. Did they go to that? That was my next question. Okay.
So it was really hard. I started pitching the story around, and it was hard to get anyone to bite. I think it's a difficult conversation, but also there's just so much news out there right now. And eventually, I had submitted it to Photoville, where I had an exhibition of my parents' story many years ago. And what was so powerful to me about the exhibition at Photoville years ago was that when you have your work up in a public setting, anyone can wander by it, right? It's not in a gallery, which can sometimes feel kind of closed off to some, but public, right? And that was really powerful. And so I submitted it to Photoville and was like, this is meant to be a public facing exhibition because I want it to help people out there and connect. And so it was exhibited this past June in Photoville in Brooklyn. And a few of the women came with their families to see it and to see other people reading their stories. And just, it was such a full circle moment because I've been working on this for the last 4 years.
Wow,
and they've been cheerleaders. You know, it's interesting. They tell me about how hard it is to get people to talk about this topic, and then I'm telling them how hard it is to get anyone to publish this topic, and so we've just connected in these deeper and deeper levels. And then it was a finalist for the Wellcome Prize in London. So there's an exhibition up there at the Crick Institute through October. If anyone's in London, send me a pic. So that's kind of taken up a lot of my time. But fast forward, while this is all happening, my husband and I decide that we're going to move back to an island. This time, instead of Guam, it's going to be a little bit closer to New York, where we're from. And so we end up moving to the island of St. John in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Oof, rough life. Jeez, how do you go on?
I know, it's insane. I think of one of my first apartments that I lived in New York City in the East Village, where my window faced a brick wall.
Yeah, that happens.
Yep. And I have a distinct memory of just sort of the warm glow of the tungsten light in that apartment because we got no natural light. And now we look out into the ocean. Yeah, it's wild. You know, there's something that happens, I think, when you have these big moments in your life. Like I don't have living parents anymore, so my kids don't have living grandparents. On my husband's side, his parents are both deceased as well. And we felt a bit untethered to this place that used to be our home and decided, you know what, we could both work remotely. Let's try this with the kids. Yeah. And so we went down to visit, fell in love with the place, fell in love with the people. And, you know, my kids have school starting next week. Like, we're in with the community. I taught a photography class at the St. John School of the Arts. We got one of those, 4,000 people, but we've got a ton of creative people down there, which is fun. And so I've started to pivot a little because I love working on these long form stories, but they have to kind of come, you know, you have to be like inspired. Like it doesn't, whenever I try to start a project, it goes nowhere. When a project sort of comes alive on its own, then it can lead. And so what I have been doing in the interim in St. John is I've started doing more family photo shoots and leaning into the industry that is there, which photojournalists don't realize that there are other elements, other photography industries within photography that actually pay you a living wage.
It's crazy idea, right? Yeah. Well, I think.
And I can be home by bedtime.
Well, you make your own hour, really.
Yeah.
It's like, unless you're one of those people like only golden hour, only blue hour. Are you one of those?
I mean, I'm not one of those, but again, I could be home by bedtime.
Yeah.
And I'm photographing other people's joy. And it's like, it's good for this moment in my life where I have 2 young kids and I'm trying to be present, because if there's a big, you know, the most cliche but obvious lesson of them all with my parents is that life is short.
Yeah. Also, I think, photographers get stuck in like, well, I do this, or they either say I shoot everything or I do this. And it's like, either way, you're killing yourself. Like, what do you do? You know what I mean? But I do think that there's something to staying with a project, to stay active shooting, period. Just you're flexing that muscle, you're working that muscle. But how many people start long-term projects that just burn out in the first, like, not even 5% of getting it? A lot of people, I watch it in here and know who you are. You come in here and you buy the gear you think you're going to use for the project, and then you deflate. You think that was somehow going to create the project. No, you have to, and then you have to stick with it. And what's the worst part of it is that if you do stick with it, you have to be open to the fact that it might completely change from where you started, and you go with it still.
Oh yeah. That's like the biggest lesson, right? You think it's going to be about one thing, and then it becomes about something else, and you just have to trust in the process. It's also, and you, if you're not shooting, nothing's happening. So you have to, I remember at some point I was doing a lot of research, and my husband was like, just go out and shoot. Just start shooting.
Right.
But it's also okay to give yourself like kind of a detour. Be like, actually, I really love shooting dogs. So I've been working on a dog project that I didn't know was a project. I just started it because it brought me deep joy.
You got to go to one of those cities with a ton of feral dogs that they cherish.
That's dangerous though, because I am a hoarder. And I have not hoarded animals yet, but the temptation is there.
Man. Nothing makes you want to clean your apartment more than watching hoarders and going, I am not this person. Let me get started just with a shovel and a garbage
What's weird
bag.
is that that's not my first impulse, but like, I get it. I digress.
I think it's important for everybody to pick something that, even if no one sees it, that's why I tell everybody in these chairs, like, every photographer every now and then should do a self-portrait series that they know no one else will see. It's just your shots. Delete them if you want. I don't care, but you should work on something and try to get somewhere with it, even if no one sees it. That's really being a photographer. That's really shooting. I mean, see that pile of junk right there? That's literally me trying to jazz myself up to go, I got a series in my head and I'm going to go do it. So I'm doing exactly what I just said.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try to stick with it this time.
No, but this is also why I love the coffees with creators, because every time I watch one, I feel inspired. I feel motivated. And sometimes you kind of like need that kick in the, kick to like get you moving. And sometimes I find myself, now that I'm not in New York, I'm not around a lot of photographers. I'm not like feeling that jolt of inspiration. Right. And sometimes I get really bogged down by everything that's on the internet, on socials. So to watch something that actually like, to limit my screen time, but also focus it on things that actually like feel nourishing to my creative self.
No, I mean, that's one of the reasons I made sure, one, that we do this series, but we also do it like in person, not a Zoom call.
Oh.
Because I think, first of all, it's such a different,
oh my gosh,
it's such a different dynamic, but there's so many people. When I do the trade shows, the small workshops, you realize how remote some areas are, and they'll never be in a commercial environment to understand what it takes to do commercial photography, or they'll never be near art directors or something. They're just doing like their personal, their independent business and stuff like that, or they're just hobbyists. If you aren't around people that are on your wavelength, that's what this kind of stuff is for. That's what this chat is for. But I just want to mention this one, Michael Carwell saying it's not hoarding if your stuff is cool. And I can't argue with that. I can't.
He sounds like an enabler like me.
Well, you know what I have a lot of is like weird props from every shoot, right? So
yeah,
my phone just reminded me about this jar of teeth I have. And I was like, oh yeah, I do have a jar. That's like really, so I'm just like, and then you look around, you're like, okay, I have oddball weapons, rusty metal from something I did once. It's like if someone saw it, they wouldn't get it. But in my head, I'm like, that's not garbage. That's a thing. That's another thing. And then as photographers, you got your wall covered with literally the history of your life with all the things.
Yeah.
So
I love it. I mean, I support it. And
are you inundating your kids with like the same sort of like document when you can? Make sure you're.
Well, my 2-year-old, my 2.5-year-old has been stealing my phone because he wants to take pictures, and it's mostly deeply unflattering photographs of me from below.
Their perspective.
Fair, but
I mean, what are you gonna do?
Nobody will ever see those. My 5.5-year-old, I bought him a camera years ago, various versions of cameras that I knew that would survive if he dropped them on the ground, which he did all the time.
Which exist, and you should totally have those cameras.
Oh yeah. Oh. And he really likes it. He's so funny. He's at camp right now, and at his camp they have like a photography class.
That's sick.
I know. And he was telling me about it. He's like, yeah, like today we met a tachographer. And I was like, a what? And he's like, like a tachographer, like what you do for work. And I was like, a photographer? He's like, yeah. And I was like, oh God, maybe I should start by like teaching him how to say it, but doesn't matter. He was excited. And he my kids have gotten very used to me photographing them.
I'm sure.
Which is nice. And I love when my eldest Levi takes pictures, because I'll see him get excited and then he'll take the camera and take some pictures, or he'll share it with some of his friends. His friends will come over and they'll see the camera and they'll want to, and it's like a camera that can be dropped. Though I want to upgrade him because I think I would love for his pictures to be of higher quality.
How old's your kid?
5.5.
My 5.5 needs an upgrade. This is where you know we're in 2025. Okay. I will say though, some of the best tough cameras out there, Ricoh, Olympus makes really great tough cameras. I give them to my fat Greek father who beats the snot out of everything, and they all survive. So, but you know what I like about them? Not to get geary, but they have a ring light on them. So like if you're a kid, you always get close, right?
Yeah.
It has a ring light. It can macro shoot with well-lit imaging.
That's amazing. I have taught Levi about natural light and like utilizing that, you know, in his mother's fashion.
You're all like, I do not know this demon called strobe. Or it's just amazing when people get nervous about changing the lighting, like whether natural light or strobe or constant light versus strobe. I'm like, it's not about what you're using. If it's not your language, if your language is natural light, the way you see it, and that's how you want it to feel, then that's the way you shoot. It's okay. I'm just also in the camp of, if someone calls me and I can't do the thing they're asking me to do, I shouldn't be doing this. That's me.
I felt that way about like fashion photography.
Okay, fair.
So I was for AM New York. Once upon a time, they had me do a back to school fashion story, and my brother was assisting me because he is just like better at lights and all that stuff. And it was all this brother over here, Matt Borowick. He's pretty awesome. We made it happen and it looked good.
That was the most telling pause.
But like it wasn't, there are people who do that kind of photography that not only do it so well, but like love it. And you can feel, when I don't love something I'm photographing, you can feel it.
If it doesn't feel like your voice, no matter how technical it is, it happens all the time. And we come from different things, but like in commercial land, they'll be like, can't you do it more like this? I'm like, physically, yes, I can.
Yeah.
I think that sucks. It doesn't look like something I would shoot. I don't know why you hired me, but I'll do it anyway because you know what? I need money. But
you also have to be, I think that one of the keys to success in this industry at whatever level you are is if you really want to stay in it and work in it and survive in it and have a good life, like you have to be versatile.
You have to be flexible.
And also like, okay, so maybe you don't do this kind of photography, but you can definitely outsource. I know good lighters. I know good stage. Can you tell I know what I'm talking about? I know good prop stylists. Like I know these things. And I can produce, I can make it happen.
Right.
But it's just a different way of working.
Well, I don't think people realize there's always this like dream of like, I'm going to shoot how I want, when I want, and people are going to pay me for it. And it's like, do you know how rare it is to be hired for the exact way you do something? They get an idea of the tone from your work, but they're going to want this to happen.
Yeah.
And it might not be what you want to do at that moment, but you got to put out the work out there that you want to be hired for.
Yeah.
And the style of work that you want to be hired for. And a lot of times it means sticking to your guns for a long time because not everybody's going to gravitate to your style. Right. And if you really believe that that's your style, well, then you're going to have to hold tight and build that audience.
You know, what you just made me think of something. So early in my career, when I was freelancing for Newsday, I was shooting the cover of one of the inside sections.
Okay.
And I knew that it had to look a certain way because where they're going to put the logo. And like they liked it was a little bit more like, not gimmicky, but like a little bit more tabloidy. It wasn't like a observational portrait from afar.
Now we call them clickbaity.
It was a little clickbaity, but in the print days,
right? It was turn pagey.
And so I did this. Oh, I like turn pagey. So I did this shoot, and I went back, and my editor was like, "Okay, you got the shot, looks great, but like, what is the rest of this?" She was like, this doesn't look like you. This looks like us. This looks like the newspaper. But I hired you to shoot like Nancy Borowick.
So a photo editor once told me, "You're telling me what I want to hear. That you're telling me what you think I want to hear." That's what they used to.
And she said, you know what? From now on, yes, I want you to shoot what you know we want, but I need you to shoot what you want to. And if there's an image that you feel strongly about that should go with the story, make a case.
Nice.
You were the one who was there.
Nice.
Especially the news stuff, and which I felt was like so empowering as a young photographer. And I had a great relationship. This editor, her name was Rebecca Cooney. She was in the industry for a long time. She was the first one who gave me a shot. You know, like we met at ICP, and we talked for like 20 minutes. And I remember she said, you know, you're a great photographer. You seem like a great person. Do you have a car? And I said,
I can rent one.
Well, no. And I said yes, which was a lie because I knew I could rent one. I knew it was like when Zipcar had come out, right? Like I knew I could grab one on the corner.
Yeah.
And so a few months later, and after many follow-ups, she finally hired me. And that kicked off, you know, like that kicked off 3 years of me saying yes to everything, to have these opportunities. But it really does take someone who gets to know your visual style, which is why mentors are so valuable. And you know, sharing your work with others, other eyes is so valuable because sometimes you get lost in who you're shooting for and you lose track of
your own thing.
Yeah. And that's also why personal projects are so nice because it's your own thing.
Yeah. Your own perspective. But that also is, people don't realize that art directors and photo directors, they don't shoot, right? But the best ones understand the tools that they're putting in play, which are the human beings that they're tapping to do it. If they really trust you and they want what you're doing, the best photo editors let you do that.
Yeah.
They'll tailor it to be like, I need something like this. Can you get more of that? But they won't go like, yeah, I know you can shoot that, but I want this. Then go hire a guy who does that, right?
Yeah.
Leave me alone. I don't want to tell you. But it's really hard to, unless you're in the industry, it's really hard to judge a good photo editor. It really is. Or to even come across one, to be honest with you. So, and a lot of times, I got to tell you, times I've worked for art directors specifically that were like half my age and I never saw them again in my life. You know that they just worked that one job.
Yeah. Maybe
they ran it because they spent the money on it. And then they were like, yeah, I guess that was the trend. Or they just tell you, we want vibes. What does that mean? We want vibes. What do you want? You want me to shoot with an Instax camera? What does vibes mean? Like, stop doing this TikTok thing to me. Am I old? Is that what's happening right now?
You and me both.
Oh my God.
The internet is too much for me.
What's the next project we're going into? I mean, I feel like you're always got something turning, or I keep sketchbooks. And like, I try to remember what the hell I was thinking when I sketched the thing.
Yeah.
But you seem more like it's in the back of your mind all the time type person.
Yeah.
What's the next?
So I decided that when I have a project idea that I start but don't finish, I just call them all long-term projects.
Yeah, sure. That's positive.
And years ago, I had the great pleasure of shooting the Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show in New York City.
Oh, did you get to play with the dogs?
What?
Did you get to play with the dogs?
Yes. I did it for 7 years and I loved it, but largely because I made friends and I've spent time with some of these dog handlers and owners. And
they're all weirdos, right?
They're the best. They're serious dog people, which I really connect with. The perfect kind of people. And anyway, I started this project, I started this project actually when my parents were sick but still alive. It was therapy for me, but I photographed a few different packs, but like I didn't continue it. I was like, I'll get to it, and then life happened. I'll get to it, then life happened. That's like always the case. And so I'm trying to kind of bring that back to life, but I'm also trying to figure out and find projects that might inspire me, like in the place where I live, because again, my kids are so young. It's like hard for me to constantly be traveling off island. But also another thing that gives me great purpose and joy that's like kind of tangentially related to photography is actually getting to speak and teach, and meet other photographers and mentor them. And
you're a talker.
Oh
yeah. I totally.
And because it gives me inspiration, but two, I feel like 15 years feels like a long time, but also not a long time. So I've learned a lot in the process. And because of my projects, I've learned a lot of lessons in the industry. And I really enjoy that part of being, I sometimes wonder if I'm not shooting, am I even a photographer? But I'm always shooting, but I'm also now equal parts doing other things that.
So who cares if you are or not? Who cares what? I don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever. If I pick up a camera, I'm going to shoot. I'm shooting. Like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
You know what I thought would always be
Like just trying to remember to shoot for pleasure is like a big.
Well,
thing
that's
for
the
me.
hard thing, because for me, sometimes that camera could be 2 tons. I just shot all week for everybody else in every way they wanted me to shoot.
Yeah.
The last thing I feel like doing is picking up a camera or talking about cameras. But, that's what we do. I tell you what I thought would always be a good series, and I bet you exists out there.
Okay.
I want a series of the show dogs that are retired. Like they went through it. They probably look like they're like a divorced wife. They probably look like something like that. Like they've had like so much fashion.
They've lived a lot of life.
They have such luxury to them.
Oh,
but they're
yes.
weathered, Like I bet you there's like something to that feel. And I bet you the owners reflect it,
I mean, many have said that there are similarities between those owners and those dogs.
Central Park all day. And I know some of you guys
I think people are attracted to dogs that remind them of themselves.
I think they do that to the dog. Like I feel like they kind of like it's a 50-50. They kind of go like they're always around it, so subconsciously they start cutting their hair a different way, or they wear the color that's similar to their dog, or their posture changes for the way their dog sits.
Honestly, isn't that the way some human relationships are too? Like people kind of adapt to each other, and I think it's it's really kind of magical to see it, because sometimes I don't know if people realize it. Like the very first.
Oh no, they don't. No, they
the very
absolutely
first pack I photographed were these golden retriever. It's called Golden Soul Goldens. They all have these amazing names, and so I went and spent time with this couple in Philadelphia, and they are blonde, and they are the sweetest people, generous, loving, kind. And you know who else has those attributes?
Goldies.
Goldies.
Yeah, and Goldies have no idea about personal space. I mean, I grew up with a golden retriever. She just lay on you no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's like you don't fit on this chair. I guess you're sitting on my lap now. Like that. The golden retriever energy is like a whole term now. You see it on dating apps now. It's like I have golden retriever energy. I'm like, I don't know what you want me to read from that, but I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
What do you reckon, my set lady? What is this?
I am. But I will say I am partial to my dog Einstein, who is Is he on here? This is embarrassing. He's not. He's on my Instagram.
You don't love your dog.
Apparently I don't. Honestly, once I started having human children, my social media.
When I started having human children,
my social media started to get filled with pictures of them and less so of Einstein. But actually, do you have my Instagram?
I wasn't going to put that because it's very personal. I thought it was like not very.
So here's a funny thing. At some point, someone was like, "Are you going to have a professional Instagram? Like, is it going to be your work or just your family?" And I was like, honestly, my work is my family, and my family is my work. So I'm just going to combine the two. And that's really what I've been doing. So I've been doing more family photography, and just trying to be better, get better at photo. Oh, there's Einstein. It's not the best picture of him. He looks. I
expected more of you. I'm just gonna be very honest.
He had a little bit of a snaggle tooth, which I thought was so cute. But it's a lot of the kids, and it's a lot of like, what I find that in this stage of my life, there's a lot of people asking me about my projects and about photographing your own kids.
Look at your influencing.
You
people have been asking me a lot about my kids. Let me tell you about what my morning regimen is.
Okay, I'm like a classic millennial, and I have such a hard time posting, but I'm really trying to do better.
I wanted to ask you about this. Is this a video project you're working on, or is this just?
These are the video interviews that I did with the lost moms before we did our portrait.
But is that part of it? Is the video part of it, or this is just you getting BTS of the process?
So when I started this project, my mentor, Jim Estrin, he said to me, you should get video. And I was like, why? And he said, well, you should keep in mind that like the, technology is changing and you might want the video at some point. So I covered my bases. I did video, I did good quality audio. And the videos haven't been used anywhere, but I have them. And frankly, I'm so grateful for them because I have utilized them in little ways. I think it's really important that when you're telling someone else's story, that when you let them tell it themselves in their own words.
And it's supplemental. Like people come across that aspect of it and then they look for the next, what is the project?
Yeah. And it was one thing with this project on my family. It's my family. I can, that's easy enough. But on this project, I'm sharing about these women and their losses. the vulnerability and the intimacy that I got to experience with them sharing their story is so different than me kind of regurgitating back what they've said to me.
Oh, their tone, the way they, just
their
timing,
hand gestures,
everything.
everything. So my social media. So anyway, I've accepted that, one, it was just going to be too much work. Nobody has time to have a whole other social media account, at least for me. But two, my work is my life and my life is my work.
And I'm going to leave it on that. So, I mean,
that sounded, I don't know.
I mean, if you can't tell, like it's the real deal, right? As much as she works it, she does in her personal life. Anyone that can work constantly in this industry at a level that she's working at and still want to go shoot a personal project, that's enough photographer. So you guys can follow Nancy over here. All right. And don't forget not tomorrow. What's today? Wednesday. Tomorrow. Look at that. Tomorrow, Daniel Norton's live here doing best lenses for portraits. You know where to find me at. There are like 67 other episodes of this. If you're into this, make sure you check out the playlist. We got to get you in here to maybe next time you're here, maybe we'll do something where you do a talk through or something like that. Maybe show some of the work and talk about the work or something like that. So we'll do an event.
Yeah, I can I love doing like a breakdown, so I can like talk about how I do the portraits or how I approach strangers on the street.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, I can only imagine. Well, we'll figure some stuff out. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the book. This is awesome. And guys, don't forget, if you're new here, hit subscribe. Don't forget to hit like. It helps out Nancy. She feeds her 2 kids, and that dog gets dental work for every like. It's the only way it's going to work out.
That is so accurate. You don't even know.
So make sure you're hitting this. And don't forget, we're live on Adorama events every week. So make sure you hit subscribe over there. Adorama Cinema for video. I'm Seth Miranda. You are awesome, and enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks so much, Nancy.
Thank you. Sorry, sweaty hands.
Okay.
Sweaty hands.
Be good, guys. Later.